Dr. Kabir Adamu. I'm the founder and managing director of Beacon Consulting Limited. We are an enterprise security risk management and intelligence solutions provider, both in Nigeria and in Sahelian countries. What we do is we look at security challenges, deconstruct those security challenges, and then put forward both the threats and the risk, as well as the mitigation measures. The reaction of every logical, law-abiding Nigeria, not again. At what point will Nigeria as a country realize that this is not the way to manage both national security and then coexistence? We've had one too many of such incidents that should have awoken us to the fact that something is wrong with the way we're approaching national security. As an expert in the field, I just wonder at what point would we wake up and say enough is enough and do the right things to ensure what the Constitution says in Section 14, subsection 2, that the protection of the lives and property of every Nigerian is the primary responsibility of government. So yeah, I was shocked really that the incidents happened and that the perpetrators not just were able to carry out the incident, but they escaped almost unscathed. I am not aware that in both incidents, the one in Katsina and the one in Abuja, that the perpetrators, one of them have been either killed or arrested. Rather, they carried out those incidents and they escaped. And if we speak about psychological ops, their confidence is growing. When you have an adversary and the adversary is able to carry out incidents of the manner that we're discussing and escape with the bounty that he or she came for, then all it does is to increase their confidence level. And if before they were stopping in the perimeter, then the next time they would come to the center point because their confidence is boosted. They will go for bigger targets. And unfortunately, that is what we've been seeing. And that's what, if we don't change this narrative, this cycle, then that's what we're likely to see going forward. So these things have antecedents. They didn't just happen in the blues. That's one. Two, for now, and I would, as a professional, I would remain on the neutral side to say that I don't have any evidence that the two incidents were coordinated. I'm not aware that there is a link between the Abuja incident and the Katsina incident. Now, that's not to say that in the future that link will not emerge, but for now I don't have that. The second element is, for now, no group has claimed the two incidents. I know the Minister of Defense has indicated Boko Haram, but that's an amorphous statement. As a specialist, Boko Haram could mean one of 4 or 5 things in the context of Nigeria. For us to deconstruct that statement, we need to understand: is it Boko Haram Jamaat al-Ahlussunnah al-Dawat wal Jihad? Is it Boko Haram Ansaru? Or is it Boko Haram Islamic State in West Africa province? Or is it even Boko Haram in the larger Sahel? Or is it even Boko Haram, the parent group itself? So that needs to be deconstructed. Now, the second or third important element is that if you look at I want to make the point that there is already a known intention by all the elements of Boko Haram that I've just mentioned to free their prisoners in captivity. So if you look at the recent attack on a train that was moving from Abuja to Kaduna on March, I think 26th, if I remember well, part of the ransom demands by the perpetrators of that act is that 16 of their prisoners, members who are in detention in government custody, should be freed. Now, how are we sure that it's not that group that carried out the Kuje incident to free their members. So the point I'm making is that there is enough intelligence that should have told us custodial centers are likely to be attacked. These groups have repeatedly mentioned their desire to have their members freed. In fact, last month, they launched a campaign at the global level where their newly appointed Amir called on affiliates across the world to take the release of detained members more seriously. So we should, as a country, and the security department should have taken note of that, and they should have increased the security level at our custodial centers and other places where these suspects or convicted terrorists are being held. Now, unfortunately, one of the foremost custodial centers in the country, that's the Kuje Custodial Center, was not just attacked, it was successfully attacked, and then the inmates in that custodial center who are either convicts for terrorism or convicts for terrorism-related offenses have all been released. So yeah, we could look at it from the angle that it's a slap on the face of our security agencies, or we could look at it from the angle of a determined adversary who has stated his intention and now has come out to achieve that intention. I would still tie it to my earlier statement. This only serves to embolden them further to carry out, unfortunately, more of such brazen attacks. So there are several factors that are responsible for this attack on hard targets. Let me use that word for now, because all of the facilities that we're talking about are hard targets. Now, some of the factors are internal, while others are external. Now, if we look at the internal factors, the possibility of either complacency or lack of professionalism or even collaboration. There are huge grievances that exist within the personnel of these services, and this personnel would run from mainstream personnel who are recruited and trained and maintained by the correctional services, to their contractors, to their support staff, to also their host communities who are associated with them. Now, there are lapses and grievances associated with all of these groups that could be exploited by a determined or intelligent adversary. So as an example, a staff of the correctional services whose salary is poor and he's complained about that salary, or in some instances, he's not even being paid, or perhaps issues around promotion, he's not happy. If I'm a determined adversary, all I need to do is sit down with him, show him that, look, the person doing this to you, not paying you, is your enemy, that help me, let me do that, let me either embarrass him or whatever. So there are several incentives that can be exploited, vulnerabilities, by a determined adversary that would make either collaborators or informants potential targets for recruitment and for use to allow for such attacks. Again, like I said, there are internal factors, and one of them is the possibility of this informant, but there are several other factors, both internal and external, that led to this incident. So Intel is divided into different categories, and Intel is only useful if it's acted upon. Let's use the best category, which is called actionable intelligence. Now, if what the DSS supplied is actionable intelligence, in other words, intelligence that answers all the imperatives and that also gives an indication of when and how an incident is going to happen. Now, if there is evidence that that happened, then I would say there is also evidence of negligence and culpability by whoever refused to act on those evidence. And for me, that is even more important. We have observed over a very long time that there is no accountability, and within the security sector, persons allow incidents to occur, incidents of significant importance that affect the lives and property of Nigerians, and they are not being penalized in any way. They are not held accountable. I gave the reference of the train incident. You are a journalist. Please tell me if you are aware that any member of the security departments have been held accountable for allowing that incident to occur and for allowing Nigerian lives. 9 lives were lost. Initially, I think 7 or 8, and then one other person died, later as a result of the injuries. I'm not aware that one government official, security official, has been held responsible or accountable for that failure. Now, compare that incident and our reaction to if it were another country, even our neighboring countries here in Africa, or even further down the road in other places like, Europe and America. Imagine what would have happened if their officials allow such things to happen. So that is, for me, is even more important, this absence of accountability and this impunity that seems to exist within the security sector. And if we're going to get it right, I think that is a beginning point. How do we increase accountability within the security sector so that failures are punished and successes, of course, are rewarded? So to put it in context and to be fair to this government, yes, it is bad, but it has been worse before this government. In precisely 2013, when one of the Boko Haram groups, at that time it was actually only one, the Jamaat al-Ahl Sunnah al-Dawat wal Jihad, it got the notorious title of being the world's most deadly terrorist group. Now, in that year, about 13,000 Nigerians were killed. Now, since then, based on data that I keep in my company, as well as data that is available by several other organizations, there has been any year where that number of Nigerians were killed. 13,000 was the highest from 2013, 2014, or up to now. The figure has hovered around 8,000 or 9. So there is a reduction. If this government says it's doing better, then possibly it's true. But the reality is that 9,000 to 10,000 persons dying in any country is bad. We can't run away from that. The point I'm making is that it's been worse than before. If it's bad now, it was worse before. What we want to see is an improvement, and I'm happy that's the question you're asking me, an improvement that will bring that figure down to probably 100. Now, to do that, there are drivers of insecurity, root causes of insecurity. It is not about boots on ground. It is not about deploying the military or other security operatives on ground. Yes, it's a component of improving security, but addressing those root causes is even more important. And what are these root causes? How do we address the political and socioeconomic grievances that is currently at a very high level in Nigeria? How do we improve on national cohesion? The level of national disharmony is unprecedented at the moment. So how do we improve on that? Issues around poverty and unemployment, drug addiction, the inability of government at the federal and state level to introduce adaptive measures on climate change and its consequences, weapons proliferation, name them. Things like that are the drivers of insecurity. And if we're going to address insecurity, then those are the things that we need to start with at both the federal and state level. Sometimes we make the mistake and say it's just the federal government. All of these things that I've mentioned, yes, the federal government has a bigger role to play, but the state governments do have a huge responsibility. Addressing poverty and unemployment is not just the work of the federal government. The state governments have a role to play. Our judicial system that is not functioning, that does not arrest and punish offenders, need to be enhanced. And that's not just the work of the federal government. The state government have a role to play there too. So that's the beginning step. After we've done that, then we need to look at the security sector. There are 27 ministries, departments, and agencies in the country that are involved in security. We need to enhance coordination among them. This current scenario where they are operating in silos and sometimes even have unhealthy rivalry among them, we need to change that. We need to start seeing them working together as one, and then each of them, like I mentioned earlier on, playing its role. In doing that, it means the coordinating elements within the security architecture, those that supervise these ministries, departments, and agencies. So as an example, the Ministry of Interior, the Ministry of Defense, the Ministry of Police Affairs, the Presidency, the National Security Advisor, they have to enhance their capacity for monitoring and evaluation. How do they ensure that key performance indicators are introduced in a manner that allows them to say, okay, if there is a presidential directive or there is a mandate, e.g. customs and immigration, border control, how do they measure the performance of these organizations? It's all about enhancing monitoring and evaluation. And then, of course, the next one is auditing. Then the legislature also has a role to play in its parliamentary functions, both in terms of legislation, oversight, and then budgetary provisions for these organizations. Now, this is what I would like to hear going into 2023. I would like to hear the flag bearers of each of the parties talking about all of these things that I've mentioned in addition to addressing the root causes and then enhancing this oversight and monitoring and evaluation functions within the security organization, so that the ethos of the functions of the security organizations becomes, in clear terms, the protection of the lives and property of the Nigerian, and not in the situation where we have at the moment, where the average Nigerian, frankly, doesn't see those organizations as serving to protect his life and property. If we do these things I've mentioned, then perhaps we'll see a change going in 2023. Unfortunately, I'm not hearing that narrative from the presidential flag bearers or even from the political parties themselves. Okay, let me start by saying, yes, if you speak in numerical terms alone without going deeper into the analysis of those numerical terms, on the surface of it, there is a reduction. But yeah, there has been a spread of incidents, and there has been the emergence of new security threats. Banditry is one of them. It has reached proportions that it never was in the past. Secessionist agitation and the activities of groups that are affiliated or associated with these secessionist groups have also increased in certain parts of the country. The networking or collaboration or partnership between these state, non-state actors, especially in the Northwest and North Central, has increased and posing bigger threats even than what terrorism posed to the country in Europe. So yes, the figures may have reduced, but these new threats have also are presenting fronts that, if not quickly addressed, could even be bigger than the terrorism in the Northeast. So quite concerning. And that's why figures are figures, but then when you analyze those figures, it also gives you an indication of what is actually happening. And that's what we do in my company, in my consultancy. Not just the analysis, but also an indication of who is behind what and how that person is affecting the environment, as it were. Now, in terms of looking into the future and what we're likely to expect, the solution is actually in Nigerians. We need to speak up more. We are not, our tolerance level is unprecedented. I study security globally. I've interacted with practitioners across the world. There is no country like Nigeria in terms of tolerance for impunity. And I think that's what we need to change. Let's come out of that Twitter space. Let's come out of the Instagram space and Facebook and other social media space and get our voters' card and speak during the voting process and elect leaders that we can relate with their promises to address those drivers of insecurity that I've mentioned, and that to change the narrative in terms of improved security and national cohesion. That is the way to go. And I'm very happy with what INEC has done. INEC has provided improvement. INEC, of course, with the support of the current government, has improved our electoral processes so that the era of rigging, I'm not saying rigging was completely eliminated. It's not a platform for me to talk about the possibilities of rigging, but it's been eliminated. And anyone who has the capacity to, influence the outcome of the elections has the capacity to even do more than what would affect the elections. So yes, there is hope in that regard, but that hope is dependent on our abilities as Nigerians to get our voters' card and to come out on election day to vote, and not just allow our future to be determined by those who unfortunately have gotten us to where we are at the moment. That's the hope I want to give Nigerians, and to remind them that the key is actually in our hands.